Our whole mission here is to take, stacks of material about these hidden corners of the economy and really show you what makes them tick.
And today, we've got a fascinating one.
We really do. We are zeroing in on a business that, on the surface, could not sound more dull, but the mechanics behind it are just incredible. We're talking about parking lot striping.
It sounds so mundane, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's like just a background element of everyday life. But what the sources all point to is this incredibly high margin, totally mandatory B2B service.
So define that for us. What are we actually talking about here?
We're talking about the application, or the refreshing of all the lines, the stencils, the symbols you see, your handicap markers, your directional arrows, the red paint on a fire lane curb.
All of it.
Anything painted on asphalt or concrete, basically, to keep things safe and orderly.
Exactly. So our mission for you today is to unpack these sources and figure out why. Why does this service, which at the end of the day is just paint, have some of the highest, most reliable profit margins in the entire property maintenance industry?
There's a legal moat around it. That's the key. So, okay, let's unpack this and maybe start with the demand side of things.
Let's do it. Let's jump right into these non-negotiable drivers. If you think about something like landscaping or even general cleaning, a lot of that is optional. It's aesthetic.
Right. It's a nice to have.
This is not that. The sources are clear. Faded markings aren't just ugly. They are an immediate, significant legal liability, a huge safety hazard for any property owner.
And that distinction between optional and mandatory, I mean, that's everything here. The absolute core engine driving this, especially in the U.S. and Canada, is the Americans with Disabilities Act, the ADA.
Okay, so that's the compliance piece.
That's the big one. ADA compliance means you must have perfectly clear, properly measured, well-maintained handicap spaces, access aisles, all of it.
So if you own, say, a shopping center and those blue lines start to fade, you are exposed. And this isn't just some hypothetical risk.
No, not at all. The risk is twofold.
Yeah.
First, you have massive fines from regulatory bodies. But the second one is far more expensive. Our sources are full of this stuff.
Yeah.
Poor markings lead to accidents, to slip and falls, and especially to these accessibility lawsuits.
And I imagine insurance companies have something to say about this too.
Oh, absolutely. They mandate regular maintenance. They often won't cover certain liabilities if you, the property owner, haven't taken, reasonable steps to fix a known hazard. And faded paint is a known hazard.
So the property owner isn't really deciding if they want to repaint, just deciding how fast they can get someone out there to remove this massive legal and financial risk.
Which completely changes the whole client-contractor dynamic.
How so?
Well, your main clients are the ones with the most to lose. Big commercial properties, hospitals, shopping centers, municipalities. For them, striping is a fixed, mandatory maintenance expense. It's just part of their budget.
So they're not really haggling on price.
They often don't. Because the cost of one lawsuit is so much greater than the cost of the job, they just want it done right. And they want it done now. They need that proof of compliance.
That gives the contractor a ton of negotiating power. And I guess that extends to the workflow itself, like when the work gets done.
Yes, and that feeds right into the efficiency of the whole model. The work is almost always done when the lot is empty.
At night or on a weekend?
Right. At night or on a Sunday morning. And that constraint actually makes the job way more efficient because you're not dodging cars. You can just go.
And how fast can you go? What's the turnaround on, say, a medium-sized lot?
For a medium lot, maybe 50 to 100 spaces, you're looking at only about 2 to 6 hours, start to finish.
2 to 6 hours. When you think about what those contracts are worth, that's an incredible hourly rate.
It's stunning. And the real kicker, this is high recurring demand. You're not always hunting for a new client.
Because the paint wears off.
The paint wears off. UV rays, road salt, snow plows, just traffic.
Yeah.
You need this service like clockwork every 12 to 24 months. Once you land a contract, you basically have a mandatory predictable client for the life of that parking lot.
Okay, so now we get to the heart of it, the economics. We've got this mandatory demand. Now let's look at the margins. You compare this to other services, even profitable ones like lawn care or pressure washing.
It's not even close. Lawn care, you might see, 30, maybe 45% gross margin. Pressure washing, a bit better, maybe 40 to 55%.
And striping just blows past those figures. Why? What's the mechanism?
The profit mechanism is just beautifully simple. It's a huge imbalance between the value the client perceives and what the materials actually cost.
Okay, break that down.
First, the material costs. It's shockingly low.
Yeah.
The actual specialized traffic paint that you use. It's typically only 10 to 15% of the total ticket price.
Wow. So 85 to 90% of what the client pays is for everything else.
Everything else, it's for the specialized knowledge, for the equipment, and crucially for the speed and for taking on that liability for them.
And that speed is the second pillar.
That's the second pillar. The labor efficiency is just off the charts because of how fast you can do the work.
Hmm.
You can knock out several high-value jobs in a single night shift.
Okay, let's get granular. North America, the US, and Canada. What do the prices actually look like?
The models are usually either a price per line or a flat per project fee. Generally, you see anywhere from, say, $4 to $8 per stall,
Okay.
or maybe 20 cents to $1 per linear foot.
And for a small or medium lot, that translates to an average ticket of what?
Around $500 on the very low end, up to maybe $2,500 for a decent-sized commercial lot.
So when you plug in those low material costs, the margins must just soar.
They absolutely do. We're consistently seeing gross margins of 60 to 80%.
60 to 80.
And what's really amazing is the net margin. After you pay for taxes, fuel, insurance, all your overhead, it stays incredibly strong. We're talking 35 to 60% net.
35 to 60% net margin for what is essentially applying paint. That feels almost too high. If it's that good, why isn't the market just flooded with people driving the price down?
That is the critical question. And the answer goes right back to that legal moat we talked about, liability and compliance.
It's not about the technical skill.
It's not a technically complex job, no.
Yeah.
But it is a job where if you mess it up, the penalty for your client is immediate and severe. So the barrier isn't the cost of a paint sprayer, it's reputation.
Right.
Property managers need someone reliable, insured, who they know will get the ADA measurements right every single time. A cheap, fly-by-night operator who messes up the handicap zones is a walking lawsuit for them.
So that high margin is actually protected by fear, the fear of non-compliance.
That's it. You're not paying for paint. You're paying for guaranteed peace of mind. You're paying to transfer the liability onto the contractor.
That makes perfect sense. So to really understand this, let's walk through a job. A standard, say, 100-space lot. What's the P&L look like?
Okay. A project with maybe 80 to 120 spaces to restripe. The contract price is often going to be somewhere between $2,500 and $5,000.
And your direct costs for that job.
Your total direct cost, so that's paint, maybe some stencils, and paying 2 workers for a few hours, might only be $600 to $1,000.
So you're looking at a gross profit of anywhere from $1,500 to $4,000 for a 3 to 5 hour shift.
For one night's work. That is the power of the model.
Now, what about seasonality? In Canada, for example, you can't exactly stripe in a blizzard.
Right, there's a slight wrinkle there. In Canada, the sources show similar gross margins, maybe 60 to 75%, with net around 40 to 55. But the shorter season, it's kind of balanced out.
Oh, so?
Because the harsh winters with snowplows and salt just destroy the paint. It actually increases the wear and tear, making the repainting an even more frequent mandatory job once the snow melts.
Interesting. So speaking of different operating environments, how does this all change when we go over to the European Union? They have much stricter rules on, well, everything.
Yeah, the EU is still a great market for this, but the profits are a bit more moderated. You're looking at gross margins closer to 50 to 70%, and the net drops to maybe 30 to 45.
Still fantastic numbers, but what's driving that reduction?
It's mainly 3 things. First, environmental regulations. They often require water-based paints, which can be a bit more expensive and are much more sensitive to weather when they're drying, so you lose some scheduling flexibility.
Okay, and the second?
Labor. Higher taxes and much stricter labor laws just drive up the cost of your crew significantly.
So that efficiency you get from working at night is sort of eaten away by higher labor costs.
Partially, yes. And the third factor is just technical detail. EU standards are often more precise, and they frequently require you to add reflective glass beads into the paint.
For better visibility.
Right. And that just bumps up your material cost per meter a little bit. But the main takeaway is the same. Globally, this is a high-margin business protected by regulation.
Okay, so regardless of the region, the profits are solid. Which brings us to the next question. If the business is this good, how hard is it to get into? What's the startup cost?
The initial investment is, remarkably low. You don't need a huge fleet of trucks or a big building to get started. You can launch a pretty minimal mobile operation very quickly.
So what are the absolute essential tools?
The big one, the centerpiece, is the striping machine. It's a walk-behind, airless, high-pressure pump.
And what does one of those run you?
A good new one will be $2,000 to $4,000. But you can find a perfectly good used machine for, $800 to $1,200.
And then you just need stencils.
You need a good set of durable stencils for all the symbols. Handicap, arrows, numbers, fire lanes, that's another few $100.
So your total minimum investment to get started, machines, stencils, some paint, safety gear, we're talking realistically between $5,000 and $12,000.
That's the range. It's a very accessible price point for a business that's promising, 60+% gross margins.
It really is. But there has to be a catch. What separates a successful job from a bad one?
It's all in the prep work.
Yeah.
The sources are almost religious about this. Cleaning the surface is absolutely critical.
So it's with a broom.
With a powerful leaf blower or an industrial broom, yeah. Getting all the dust, dirt, and loose gravel off the asphalt. They say that accounts for 90% of the job's success.
Now that's the aha moment. It's not about the fancy machine. It's about the prep. Getting that surface perfectly clean is what makes the paint stick and last for 2 years.
And that's what makes the property manager happy. You're fulfilling their need for long-term compliance. The technical part is easy, but the attention to detail is everything.
All right, let's talk about scaling. One crew can make great money, but you can only be in one place at one time. How do you turn this into a really big business?
This is where parking lot striping becomes the perfect gateway drug, so to speak. It gets your foot in the door with these high-value B2B property managers. You build trust by perfectly executing a service they absolutely have to have done. Once you're their go-to striping company, you start to cross-sell. You offer the really high-ticket asset preservation services.
Give us the hierarchy. What's the biggest upsell?
Oh, the clear winner is seal coating. That's where you apply a protective liquid layer over the entire asphalt surface. It protects it from water, sun, oxidation. It's a much bigger job.
And a much higher price tag.
5 to 10 times the cost of the striping job, and it's also extremely profitable. Then you have things like crack filling with hot rubber, and even simple things like installing new stop signs or handicap signs. You bundle it all together.
So you might go in to bid a quick $2,000 striping job.
And you walk out with a $15,000 contract to seal, fill cracks, and then stripe the whole preserved lot. That is how you explode your annual revenue.
It's all about the bundle.
Exactly. The source is laid out pretty clearly. Based on U.S. figures, a single dedicated crew doing just 3 or 4 of these bundled projects a week, with an average ticket of, say, $3,500.
What's the annual net profit on that?
They can achieve an annual net profit of $240,000 to $360,000.
Let's just pause on that. $250,000 to over $350,000 net from one crew. Does that account for the off-season?
It does. That's based on a solid operating season, maybe 8 or 9 months, with the winter used for maintenance and sales. And the model is totally replicable. You want to scale, you just add another crew.
And what does another crew add to the bottom line?
Another good crew can boost your net profit by an extra $25,000 to $40,000 a month during that peak season.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? What this deep dive really shows is that this whole business rests on 3 pillars. First, mandatory demand that's protected by law.
Right. Second, a really low barrier to entry in terms of what it costs to get started.
And third, these exceptionally high recurring net margins that are often over 40%.
It's such a powerful lesson, isn't it? The biggest profits don't always come from the flashiest tech or the most complicated service. They come from being essential, low profile, and legally required.
The ADA and other regulations basically create a guaranteed revenue stream for these companies. The property owner has to do it.
They have to. And that necessity creates a regulatory moat that protects the prices. You're paying for certainty, not just for paint.
It protects that high net margin.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So as you go about your day, here's a final thought to mull over. What other boring essential services are out there where the high margins are protected not by patents or some secret technology, but just by legal necessity, by government mandate and public safety?
The business of being mandatory.
The business of being mandatory is often the most quietly profitable business of all.